Hello everybody. Today I'm introducing to you, or may I introduce you to the most fabulous Farooq Shaikh, who is a neuropharmacologist, both interested in drug discovery and understanding the mechanisms of epilepsy. He's from Monash University in Malaysia and is doing this really interesting research into how to potentially treat some of the epilepsies or types of seizures of epilepsy with certain types of fruit. Amazing. So he's going to be telling us all about that, and also how he's helping to challenge the stigma faced by many people with epilepsy. If this interests you, stay tuned and make sure you subscribe and press the link below to receive notifications of either this podcast or this video. Hello Farooq, thank you for being with us. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi Tori, thanks for inviting me and thanks for having me. I think it's absolute pleasure talking to you. So I'm associate professor here at Monash University Malaysia, and I do a little bit of epilepsy research. You can call me an epilepsy researcher. And I had my associations with ILE, International League Against Epilepsy, as a regional representative for Asia Pacific region from 2017 to 2021. I think recently we have a new regional representative elected. So I got a chance to work with a number of people around the world with that ILE, and especially in the Asia Pacific region. So I do more of the experimental epilepsy research. So I work on experimental animals, which includes rats, mice, zebrafishes, interestingly, to mimic epilepsy kind of condition in them and try to understand which are the potential drugs which could, have anticonvulsant potential, as well as try to understand some of the disease mechanisms related to epilepsy. For example, understanding the role of neuroinflammation and specific biomarkers. Maybe targeting them could help to improve the epileptic conditions in patients.
And this is what we need, is the research, so that we can get...
Absolutely.
Well, without research, we're stuffed. So I've heard this rumor that you've I know it's true, that you've released this paper and have this research into the impact of, it sounds mad, but of fruit upon a person's likelihood of having a seizure. Could you tell us more about that, please?
Yeah, this was very interesting, and I was actually in a patient and caregiver forum because I'm also involved with Malaysian Epilepsy Society, which is a patient and caregiver and scientist and neurologist society. So I'm involved in that. I'm fortunately as an exco member of the committee, and every month we run forums with patients and individuals, and there were a lot of questions coming in from the patient side, like, can I eat durian, which is a famous fruit in Malaysia? And I was like, oh my god. And when doctors were not really sure, the neurologists, they were like, looks like there is no research available on that and we can't confirm. People just sharing based on their experience. Maybe, yeah, you can try, you see if it triggers, or if it doesn't trigger, then you can decide. I thought, that's something, which haven't been researched, and I should put my hands into that. So before even moving to, work on durian, so I have a PhD student, Nicholas, who recently joined me. He gonna work through all these fruits for whether they are good or bad for epilepsy, I will say. But before that, I asked him to do a systematic review to look at whatever fruits is being explored so far in the world, and whether they are pro or anti-convulsant in nature. So we did a lot of databases. That paper will talk more about it. Just to briefly tell you about it, we got about 40 research papers, which are talking about fruits in epilepsy, okay, or in seizures in general, if you want to talk about it. And I think 100% of them are basically experimental studies. None of them are clinical. Okay, that's
Right.
Interesting point. Yeah. So again, there is a lack of research, especially clinical research we are talking about. And then we found there are about 38 studies out of these 40, which is talking about anticonvulsant effect of the fruits in experimental studies again. So it looks like all those fruits do have some potential as an anticonvulsant, but unfortunately, again, this is where the lack of translational research comes into the picture. These are not translated into clinical studies. So either this end up in some thesis or some papers, and that's it. There is no translational value. And I think when, as a researcher, when I talk to my students and colleagues, I say we want research which has a translational value, and not just end up a paper or which end up with the thesis, and after that nobody reads. Even the person who has written that don't read the thesis, so it doesn't make any fruits out of it. And this is where the fruits are very, very important again. So I asked, so coming back to the Nicholas work that I asked him that he did, so the 38 which are having anticonvulsant but no clinical evidence, nothing. And I think most of them has used crude extract, fruits extract as such, which is very much relatable. But I think they haven't done very detailed profiling, like which, I mean, if you look from scientific point of view, you want to know what are the active chemicals which actually may have anticonvulsant effect. You know, if you talk about a fruit or any plant extract, it has hundreds of compounds in it, you know, and which we do not know which one gonna work. And that's why, like, if you see, none of those drugs are actually based on extracts or from fruits, but it's isolated compound. For example, even you talk about marijuana or cannabis, we are not talking about cannabis directly, we are talking about THC, we are talking about cannabidiol, a specific compound, which this is where the scientific community accepts that, because you have derive a specific compound which may have potential, and not just extract which doesn't give you accurate mechanism or way to investigate it further. So this is where these 38 studies, I will say, they lack those information. And interestingly, we found 2 papers which are talking about pro-convulsant effect of a fruit. And surprisingly, this is one of the common fruit called star fruit.
Yeah. Okay. Even I know about that one. Very pretty.
Yeah. And star fruit is actually, I think it's common in Asian region probably. You might haven't seen there in UK. Mm-hmm. But it contains 2 of the compounds, caramboxine and oxalate, and they is supposed to have some pro-convulsant effect. And because of that, star fruit is, I will say, contraindicated or prohibited for epilepsy patient to consume.
How
I mean, again, you can debate on quantity, how much to eat, and how much will provoke. That's altogether different research and different debate. But in general, if you want someone not to take, I think caramboxine. We were interested to see whether durian exists, and there is no publication, there is no research on durian as such. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so there's often, I think, this common presumption out of fear a lot of the time, especially amongst people who have epilepsy. Let's use the star fruit as an example. So in your research, it has shown that it could be a proconvulsant. So i.e., in layman's terms, it could actually cause seizures. But given the complexity of epilepsy, the different types, people's different genetic makeup, that doesn't mean it will cause epilepsy or cause seizures, rather, in everyone with epilepsy.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's not just about the amount you have and a person's weight, of course, but it's about many, many different other things. And so I think it's really important that is taken into consideration, and there isn't a presumption straight away must not have star fruit. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. But maybe if, let's say, if even induces seizures in one specific person who probably like star fruits like crazy, we could later on can modify star fruits using the plant genetic people to remove that particular compound and make them suitable for them.
That's so exciting. Now, so that we don't get people's hopes up too much, that's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, right? But this is something that could potentially happen in probably the distant future. But that is really exciting. And do you know what that makes me think of as well? Like, this is going to sound random, but for instance, you can have one type of bread, say it's your regular bread, then you can have gluten-free bread. It's like you could do the same with the star fruit, but not with gluten, you know. That's amazing. Okay, so tell us more. Tell us more about your work.
Yeah, so I think a lot has to be done on fruits, especially the common tropical fruits, specific to many countries. But I think we're gonna look Malaysia first, and definitely we're gonna come to region later on. and durian I think is our target. So in Malaysia do have some very specific tropical fruits like mangosteen is one of them. I mean they all taste very good except durian to me, which I tried one time. Uh, you know durian, right?
No, I confess I don't.
Okay, better you go and Google durian because in Malaysia, in some of the lifts, it's written if you carry durian, don't enter the lift because the smell is so strong. Those who don't like that smell, they probably vomit. But some people, yeah, it's so strong and so weird smell. I could just for the sake of trying and testing, I did once. After that, I don't dare to do that.
What was the flavor like compared to the smell?
It is sweet, but it's not the sweet how other things are sweet. So it's a different sweet. I don't know how you call it.
Okay, I confess while you were just talking, I did just Google it, and it looks like a massive lychee from the outside to me, if I'm looking at the right thing. A massive fruit,
Yeah,
right? With
yeah.
like
But
a
it's not. I
almost-
think it looks very much similar to the jackfruit, but the fruit inside is different. It's like jackfruit is bit harder, but this is very soft. If you touch it, it will be very soft.
So you say you're studying for about 40 different fruits?
Specific systematic review actually we looked at 40 different fruits on which literature is available. But what we're gonna do, we're gonna work on the Malaysian tropical fruits, especially durian, mangosteen, and rambutan. These are the three most famous tropical fruits in Malaysia, and many others as well. But these are the hit list, which anyone in Malaysia you ask, definitely they like to have it anytime you ask them.
Is it a bit like having an apple in the UK, for instance?
Yeah, yeah. So surprisingly, if you read that paper, Apple, they mention it in the pro-conversion category. People have did some research on that. Sorry, anti-conversion property. Apple do have some anti-conversion effect. So yeah, so that quote on apple a day keeps doctor away is not wrong actually.
And again, in some cases, because of the complexity, who knows, the size of the person. For everybody, I'm going to put links to Farooq's papers, by the way, in the description below this video or this podcast, just so you can have a good look at this. This is all really exciting stuff. So, I mean, how long is this specific study that you're doing, going to last, do you think, before you get more
So
answers?
I think we're gonna try a different ways of it. So I want to say, I mean, I am personally interested to look at the fruit extract, the crude extract itself, because yeah, people don't isolate compound and eat fruits. So I want to try the whole extract, which is just fruit put in the water for a few hours and then that extract. But I also would like to do the individual compounds. Okay, as I mentioned, like to make sure, like if it is CBD or it is whatever, so that specific compounds I would like to test. So we're gonna do a high throughput screening again. The one of the zebrafish model we have, just one shot you can get whether it's anti or pro convergent. So that thing we're gonna do with the extracts and with the what you call isolated compounds, and that screening will give us some idea. But I think maybe in next coming 5-6 months we're gonna tell what we're gonna get in that. And but again, that's, as I mentioned, it's just a screening kind of thing, we can't confirm. Then we're gonna do more detailed models of those seizures, as well as giving maybe so this, when preliminary screen, we just expose for one time, one for a few hours we expose to that compound extract and see whether it's anti or pro convergent. But I think as you know, like some of these extracts, especially fruits and compounds, it probably need to be given for a longer duration in order to see an effect. Okay, so yeah, so we're probably gonna give a chronic administration and then check whether it has any pro or anti-convergent activity.
For those who aren't familiar with the term compounds, could you just break it down a little bit, please? Because I think lots of people don't actually know what the word compound means compared to, say, atom, compared to element. So could you just tell people quickly, please? Because I want to make it clear that you can't just eat this one fruit and it's instantly going to have this effect on you. It's not that simple.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I didn't realize it's a podcast. I thought it's a research, discussion, and I'm just using my all jargons. So I think compounds are the molecules. For example, we have bigger proteins, and when you break proteins, or you can say more easy example is like we have the bigger molecules of carbohydrates which we consume, but that are broken down into small glucose molecules. Okay, so this is exactly your extract of fruits. It's a bigger thing, and when you try to extract them and try to find out which are the other compounds, so not only they do not contain only one type of molecule, like in case of carbohydrate or protein, but they contain a number of
Right.
those small molecules are basically, we in scientific terms we call compounds or molecules. Yeah, it's the same thing.
So it's not as simple as it appears when a person says compound. Things can be broken down. It's made up of different things.
But I think cannabis is a very easy example to quote. The cannabis or marijuana do have a different types of molecules in there or compounds in there, but CBD or cannabidiol is one of the active constituents in that. Yeah, that's how we can actually understand it much more easily.
Cannabidiol or cannabis is a really good example, isn't it? It's not just about the plant or the various different types of cannabis plant, and it's not just about weed. It's about we've done a podcast actually about this before from somebody called Kylie Seaman, who specifically actually studies cannabis and the use of different cannabis oils and extracts on different diseases like epilepsy. And it's just, there's so much more to ingredients, if you like, than just the basic plants. I think it's a really important message that people understand that.
So I think the another aspect of our research is using animal models, and which we try to mimic some of the clinical conditions which epilepsy patients or individuals suffering from epilepsy actually faces. We try to look at some of the behavior aspects, some of the neurochemical aspects, some of the biochemical aspects, try to mimic the clinical condition in experimental studies. To test this compound, if they have positive effect, is more likely because of the translational value in that models, and then it probably will also work in clinical trials or human testing, but still a long way to go, because that process is altogether a very lengthy process if we talk from the drug discovery point of view. But I think talking about whether fruits are pro or anti and suitable for patient or not, I think that answer could be very, very quick, because later on what we can do based on our initial results on animals, we could run some survey where people generally consume some of the fruits and try to ask them whether these fruits do induce your seizure, or look at their seizure diaries, whenever they consume certain fruits, whether it's triggers or protect them, from seizures. So that's something in the next plan we have.
And it's not one of the exciting, I think, really interesting things about scientific research is that often the researcher themselves can be surprised about what the outcome is of the work that they're doing. So we spoke to a good while ago now Gareth Morris, who's now joined UCL, and spoke about how he was doing some work a year or so ago. Might have been, oh my goodness, it's 18 months ago. I don't know. Time has flown with lockdown, hasn't it? But how the outcome of his work was completely unexpected. Like there was this, there's almost not a presumption, but you do almost have an inkling about what the outcome of a study might be, and of course he had that, and then the outcome of the work was almost considered not a failure, but just oh well, that's no good. But I think that's amazing. Any outcome of a study that is done empirically is a great outcome. And so, for instance, what you did with the starfruit, the fact that that could cause seizures rather than help prevent them, that's a brilliant result, because some people eventually will avoid the contents of that star fruit, you said, or there is the potential for having a star fruit without that compound. And I just think that is amazing. So I want people to know that even if the research you do doesn't provide an expected or hoped for outcome, that's a really cool thing as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think you actually raised a very good point on results are results, and there is nothing negative or positive. And this is whenever I have my first meeting with my PhD or even honors candidates, I tell them, like, you just do whatever has been planned, whatever we have hypothesized. Don't care about it has to be positive or the way we have planned. Whatever you get is actually a result, and you're gonna whatever you have used for your animal chemicals or your energy, and what you have put the efforts you put in, it's gonna tell you something. And even it is you feel it's negative, you still need to report it. And I think I am very a big supporter of even publishing, you call it negative results, but it is unexpected results. Because if you're gonna show the world, like, I have invested or I have wasted, whatever you call it, my time, energy, animals and chemicals to see whether it works, but it doesn't, and you don't waste your stuff on this. Yeah, that's a really a great saving. And I think it's part of maybe we are contributing to climate change as well, not to repeat things and unnecessary things which are already there, but unfortunately people didn't report it.
Exactly. And then this is a common issue that I think we're getting better at things now. But we used to have lots of work that was done in a lab behind the scenes. We'd find out all this cool stuff. Then it remains on, well, it used to be a dusty bookshelf. Now it's an unaccessed file. And nobody knows about these results. And therefore, what is the point? But what's great to hear is you yourself, you are actually taking the information you gather, right? And you're actually communicating that to clinicians and to patients directly.
Yeah. And I think another thing I try to teach research students is serendipity. And I think most of drug discovery happens because of the serendipity. So you went to searching one thing, but you didn't get that, but you have to pay attention on other 10 things happening within your experiment. And one of them is a breakthrough, but people never pay attention to that. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, even in the discovery, I mean, if I tell this story very often to my students about discovery of phenobarbital for epilepsy, because it was known to be a drug for induced sleep, but it was not known like it works for convulsions. And I think I am forgetting the name of that neuropsychologist who was placed in a neurology ward on the night of his first shift. I think it was a night shift given to him, and there were so many epilepsy patients in his wards. And what was happened, like, they were falling one after the another after having the seizures, and this guy was so tired, like, what to do, and he decided to use phenobarbital, which was approved as a sleep medicine at that time, to inject everyone and put them on sleep. And surprisingly, for next 2 weeks, he couldn't see any seizures in them. And he wrote a paper saying that, hey, I tried to do this, but this happened. And this is how the phenobarbital is approved for epilepsy treatment. So, I mean, the reporting of what was unexpected is again equally important.
That makes me think of, for instance, lamotrigine and how that was developed as a I think I'm getting it the right way around. Anyway, as an anti-seizure medication, but it's actually a mood stabilizer for many too. So lots of people with bipolar take it, for instance. So, and I noticed that what is being looked into more these days is actually, rather than necessarily developing new drugs, which are all complicated and we can actually look on pre-existing drugs and pre-existing fruit, for instance, and see what we can get from that. And I think that's really exciting.
So I think, Tori, one of the exciting thing which actually also became the reason for the podcast is, like, we were thinking, and it was your word saying that, oh, if rather than taking pills, you take a glass of fruit cocktail, and then That's all. I'm talking about non-alcoholic for your kind information. But yeah, a fruit cocktail a day, and yeah, if it keeps your seizures away, I think that will be just great.
Wouldn't that be amazing? One of your 5 a day, whilst keeping you. Oh my god, that rhymes. One of your 5 a day and keep your seizures at bay. That's such a really bad line. But sorry, everyone who heard that. Oh my god. But yeah, and like we don't want to get people's hopes up too much. These things aren't happening overnight. But wow, there is potential out there. There really is potential out there. Which can be exciting for people who don't like popping pills every day and the side effects of those. Although one thing I would say with fruit, make sure that you don't have too much, because it will erode the enamel on your teeth and you'll be stuffed and your teeth will fall out. You can tell I have a dentist in the family. But yeah. So, okay, fantastic. So if people want to learn more about what you're doing, where can they go?
This fruits project is definitely a very exciting project, and we really want to see how translatable it could be, because as I mentioned, my idea is never to close research with theses and papers, but to make it more relevant to the clinical conditions and to the patients to improve their quality of life. So I think at least we will be able to give a very important information, which fruits to take and which not to. And I think the patients always have this question. In fact, our neurologists have this question because there is not much research out there. So I think we will hopefully contribute to that knowledge. So yeah, that's I think I'm very keenly looking forward to it with Nicholas, who has just started his journey on this project, and hopefully we could show some useful and very good information about it.
And just so everybody knows, you might have got a bit of an inkling already, but Farooq does a lot of work directly with people and families affected by epilepsy. And this is something which didn't used to be the case necessarily, generally speaking, for people who were into epilepsy research and working professionally in that field. So I think that anybody else listening who's whether you be a clinician, an academic, look up Farooq for inspiration, because we can achieve, I believe, so much more when it comes to improving the quality of life of people affected by epilepsy, if we actually know what they need, what benefits, what could benefit for their lives. And because sometimes it's not all about the seizures, right? It's about the comorbidities. It's about the mental health things, or it's about, it could be about physical comorbidities. So yeah, inspirational chap here. Thank you so much for joining us, Farooq. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm humbled with that words.